Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Cover One Film Room, of course, part of the Cover One Sports Network. I am one of your three hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined tonight by Mr. Erik Turner and Mr. Kendall Mirsky. Erik, how you feeling on this beautiful, beautiful day here in Western/upstate New York? How far you and I span in terms of New York State? It's gorgeous here.
Yeah, it was gorgeous today, and it's going to be like that the rest of the week. So I'm really excited. Got to hang out with the kids outside after work today, and excited to jump into the film on James Cook tonight.
Yeah, me too. The weather's nice. The film is nice. Kendall, you're nice, but the weather isn't so good for you over there as compared to us, which is, I was kind of shocked by that. But how are you feeling as you mosey on into the film to talk some James Cook tonight?
No, I'm all right. I'm trying to get that weather to turn around a little bit. I've been trying to play golf for like 5 days now, and I just can't seem to find the right balance of when I'm going live, when I'm prepping, when the weather is going to be right, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to get the days to align and all the stars to align so I can finally get back on the golf course, play some golf. But no, I'm glad to be back in the film room and help educate some of the fan base on our new rookie running back. I mean, it's fun. We got a shiny new toy in the backfield, and it's going to be fun to talk about him tonight.
A really exciting piece in James Cook. And actually, something that was also really exciting. Kendall, you had a really sweet Madden stream on Saturday night. Cool. That was kind of impromptu.
All right.
Yeah, it was. I mean, but for like your first run and putting it together, you did very good. And I wanted to plug that for everyone to see Kendall, riding solo and getting some more action cool. and bringing some more stuff to his individual brand and the channel as a whole. So big ups for you, Kendall, for everything you did. And again, I think it's sweet that your parents let you stay up late on a Saturday night and let you play some video games and get online.
Wow.
Absolutely ruthless.
Wow. I didn't see that coming. Wow.
I didn't. It wasn't planned.
It wasn't planned. 6 p.m. on a Saturday.
Whatever.
It wasn't planned, I swear. But yeah, so kudos to them for letting you stay up. Kudos to you. And kudos to the Buffalo Bills for going after this running back position, a position that we saw them go after in free agency and fail with J.D. McKissick, which then brought the fury of Brandon Beane upon the NFL, which may or may not have indirectly or directly led to the signing of Von Miller, because Beane just that impetus and be like, you know what, screw this. I'm setting the world on fire. Let's go get Von Miller. Awesome, Ned. Ned is a constant supporter of us here at Cover One, and appreciate the kind words, telling everybody to smash that like. I know it's corny. We say it on all the shows. I know it's corny, but you would be tremendously surprised how far a like goes towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes. See, Sophia gets it. Playing Madden with Kendall was awesome. Very much. Yeah, that episode was great, Kendall. You were tremendous. And yeah, we
I knew you were going to get sidetracked.
I feel like it started like a snowball.
The jokes write themselves. I mean,
it's just going. Oh, you saw what Charles said? He said, "Shout out to Mom's Basement."
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
I encourage them. No, I encourage them. It's good content. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I feel like what Erik said. He's like, "See what you started." I'm like, "I'm sorry."
I'm okay joking at my expense. It's funny. It's objectively funny jokes.
It is true. You are the baby-faced assassin, and we appreciate you. And yeah, so the Bills try to get J.D. McKissick. They have a deal in place. As we know, things did not work out. J.D. McKissick goes back to Washington, and Bills end up bringing in Duke Johnson. But it showed that the Bills were interested in a very specific type of running back to bring onto this team. And with how 2021 finished, I'm confused in my years, Devin Singletary was really legitimately RB1 from a usage perspective in terms of temps, carries, snap share, all of it. Everything was on Devin Singletary's shoulders down the stretch. But with the potential signing of J.D. McKissick, it showed that the Bills wanted more of a receiving threat in the backfield. They get that in James Cook, who they got at the end of the second round, almost into the third round here of this 2022 NFL draft. And a question that I wanted to ask both of you guys, because we've all talked about it at various lengths this entire offseason. Erik, we'll start with you and then swing counterclockwise to Kendall. We have mentioned the the notion of getting a complimentary running back this offseason that had some sort of special trait, whether it was speed, whether it was power, whether it was receiving ability, one of those matchup pieces that the Bills backfield did not currently have in Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. And I guess, Matt Breida at the time, but he wasn't being used. Some sort of plus matchup that a running back possessed to bring on to this team. The Bills get Mr. James Cook. And so, Erik, in that vein of wanting the Bills to add someone to the backfield that had a plus matchup or a plus trait, how satisfied are you with that selection of James Cook?
Initially, I mean, I'll admit I'm not as high on Cook as most people are. I want to say an early fourth on him. So I'm
Okay.
completely on a different page than most fans, but I do like what he brings from a schematic perspective. I do think he adds some more quickness, some more speed, especially long speed when you compare him to Moss and Singletary. And I'm talking just aside from his receiving chops, because obviously he's on a whole different level when you compare him to the other running backs of the Bills. But from a running back perspective, I think he does add some more, quickness and speed and the ability to get, a few more yards than a Motor or Moss would on a play that's blocked up. So I think, he's a new dimension specifically from a receiving, perspective. And that's something, as you said, the Bills wanted, right? And they are undergoing that rebrand. And Cook is going to add a different dimension as far as speed goes, but also as a receiver. And defenses are going to have to respect that. They had to respect it against him in college. And if they didn't, he was torching those guys. He was torching those defenses. So I do like his, his speed and quickness. And then the receiving end, we're going to talk about it for most of the night, so we'll leave that to the film.
Very nice. And Erik, I know you pulled up the PFF stats for James Cook. Anything you wanted to highlight before I swing the question over to Kendall?
No, I mean, some of the things that stand out, he's not the biggest back, but his yards per contact per attempt are actually not too bad. A lot of those, again, are on some of those, explosive plays, but I just wanted to also highlight, it's something we talked about prior to the show. In 2021, he had 61 zone runs, 42 gap runs. And for most of his career, though, if you look at the bottom, his career numbers, 142 zone runs versus 62 gap runs. So it'll be interesting how Cromer, and the staff really schemes up their run game, because I think for Cook early on, he's going to be heavily reliant on his blocking. I don't believe he is the most creative runner. I think things need to be blocked up rather well for him. And then he can hit it, with that speed, with that quickness through that first and second level. But I think he's pretty reliant as a runner on the offensive line, as are most running backs. But it'll be interesting to see what Cromer and the staff does to get him into the open field.
Very good point. Ned, I see you got some questions coming into the chat. Lucky for you, we're going to answer each of those questions as we start to get through into this deep dive and some film on Mr. James Cook. But Kendall, same question that I asked Erik. We wanted a traitsy running back added to this backfield in some form or fashion: speed, power, receiving ability. They have a combination of those things with the speed and the receiving ability in James Cook. How satisfied are you with this selection?
I am satisfied because he fills two of those complementary pieces as one running back. That is the main reason why I am satisfied. I'll agree with Erik that I wasn't necessarily as high on James Cook to go ahead and pick him in the second round, albeit it was practically a third round pick, the amount of times they traded back to get him. But either way, I mean, I'm satisfied because he offers something that we didn't already have in this backfield. He does offer that speed ability. He does offer that ability to be a mismatch out of the backfield. If you want to move him around and motion him to the slot, out wide, whatever you want to do, he is an offensive, movable chess piece in that way. And he still has potential to grow into his running back abilities because he does have some traits there. They're not anything exceptional or great by any means. I think Erik hit it really well by saying he relies on his blocking right now. But there are some traits there that show that, he could grow into someone that does become more creative as a runner. And he could be someone that plays above the scheme of the offensive line. But that's going to take some time. I don't think that's anything we should expect from day one. But ultimately, I am satisfied with the pick and the different versatility and the multiplicity of how we could use him on offense and how it makes the entire offense more multiple.
That's the big thing for me in closing out this question as well. Kendall, you mentioned a couple of words, multiplicity, the chess piece, the matchup piece. That's what the big plus is for me with James Cook, just what you can do with him. I think the concerns for him as a runner are fair, but they're things that are coachable and that he could potentially progress with. But it's that matchup ability of what you get, the having 43 runs of 10 plus yards and 14 touchdowns for his career, having 67 catches on 74 targets for 718 yards and 6 touchdowns receiving. 19.5% of his pass snaps have been in the slot. 6.7% have been out wide. His career yards after catch per reception is 10.5. Just what he adds from that dynamic piece to this Bills offense, which was something they did not have. Actually a lot more burst, a little bit of potential home run ability. Erik, you and I and Kendall were talking offline about he's got that 4.4 speed, that low 4.4 speed, but he doesn't necessarily play to that pure 4.4 speed. He'll get you a lot of chunk yards. He's going to get those 10 to 30 yard runs, but you're going to see him get caught from behind every now and again. You see it in college, which means you're going to see it in the NFL when you got bigger, longer, faster guys at that NFL level. But that chess piece that he presents, where you can line him up in the slot, you can line him up out wide, you can use him coming out of the backfield in a variety of ways, that potential positionless aspect, that continued chess piece to keep defenses off balance and dictate to defenses and just provide another element that defenses have to account for come prep time and practice other than Josh Allen, just to have another person to make them go, okay, well, we got to prepare for this package or we have to prepare for this look. And he gives that Bills offense another potential weapon in that arsenal. Erik, to you for what you got.
Yeah, I got a question, and I'll throw the first one to you, Ant. Then I got one for Kendall, too. We were talking in the premium Slack channel about vision, because it's something that, we all kind of feel that Cook kind of lacks. Now, we see all of these trainers on social media and working with these running backs, working, with receivers, and they say they can improve vision. As a running back, Anthony, do you think that you can improve vision to a point where it can be maximized and it can become a plus trait? Because personally, as someone that played the position, to me, a lot of it is, processing the defensive structure pre and post snap, but also it's about feeling. It's spatial awareness, and sometimes, it's innate. And so there's a piece of that I personally believe that you can't necessarily teach, or at least coach up to the point where you're going to make a difference. I don't know how you feel about that, Ant.
No, I agree. And similar to you, as a former running back myself, I feel that there is a certain, Kendall hit it right on the head, that innate ability, how you see and how you process and the pace at which you do. I think what can be coached up, and I guess this falls into the vision category, but maybe not. I think he can be coached up in terms of how he paces his runs, which can help him to set up blocks and do things a little differently than he currently is. So that's the only vision related thing I think you can coach up. And again, maybe there is a small degree where maybe he starts to see the game a little better, connect some dots. But to your point, Erik, I don't think it's like being, 5'11". You're kind of 5'11". You're not going to be, well, you know what? There's a chance he really might grow to be 6'3". Nope, probably not. He might get 5'11 and a half or 3/4, but you're not going to turn a 5'11 guy into a 6'3" guy.
Right. And the other question I had, and this one's for Kendall, because I know he loves talking about this, is, again, Cook's, one of his weaknesses is pass pro. And it's not that he doesn't know his assignment. He actually does a good job of tracking Mike the Will and all that. It's the execution. It's the technique, which I believe when it comes to that, you can coach that up. But early on, when he's on the field, does he represent too much of a tendency? Something we dealt with when Gore was here and Singletary was in there. Those two in or out of the lineup really signified what was coming. And I asked that because I was watching Bean's presser, about rounds 1 through 3. And he was asked about, Cook's blocking and how, he's going to be going out into a route sometimes because he's not going to be up to par and up to snuff when it comes to the pass protection side of it, which means they're going to have to keep in a tight end. They're going to have to keep in, again, if they're in 12 personnel, you got two options there, but that means if they're in 11 and he's in, you're keeping Knox in. So, I mean, is he a tendency? early on in his career? Is that going to be a signifier to the defense, an indicator saying, hey, keep an eye out here, because if this guy stays in the block, he could be a liability.
Right. Yeah, that is kind of one of my bigger fears moving into his rookie year. It's something I think he's going to have to prove that he can do during training camp to try and mitigate that fear of mine. Him showing that he can execute more as a pass blocker is going to go a long way, because I agree. I've talked about it multiple times. The way you can kind of manipulate a defense in terms of personnel by putting him on the field in, when the offense is in 12 and they're like, okay, we got to go heavy with 3 linebackers. After a certain amount of time or enough tape that gets put out there, teams aren't going to feel the need to put 3 linebackers out there in 12 personnel when Cook is the running back in that 12 personnel. And I am truly fearful of that. But on the other side of things, he has time. He has time to show on tape that he can do enough sufficiently as a pass blocker to mitigate some of the personnel qualms that the offense and the defense could have to play. So yeah, right now he's a tendency giveaway. And I think it's tough that we're just going to have to live with that. But of course he's young and he's got time to improve as a pass blocker.
And that's going to be a fun chess match too, right, guys? Because obviously he's a great receiving weapon. And one way that defenses can counter that, instead of trying to be, sit back and adapt to what the offense is throwing at them, what they can do is just say, guess what? We're blitzing. We're going to blitz. We're going to make him stay in. He can't go out into a route. And if they do, you're going to get Josh Allen killed. Almost like teams did to Marshall Faulk when he was with the Rams. Like, okay, we don't want him going out into a route. We're going to blitz guys. You need to keep, 6, 7 guys in, because we're maxing out. So that's going to be a fun chess match to watch.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like making him have to play to his weakness or his areas of opportunity as opposed to being allowed to function in his strength. And Erik, that was such a great point. Kendall, you as well. It's something that, the 3 of us have said when I was speaking with Russ, our NFL draft expert, same thing. It's frustrating to see in the pass protection because he processes it correctly. You can watch him. He reads what's going on from the second level, and you'll see him flow and scrape and pick up a blitzing linebacker. Like he reads it. And it's just that execution piece, like where his hand placement is, where his head is, how wide his feet are, like where he's set. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And given that he is on the smaller side, maybe he can put on some weight and grow into his frame a bit. His execution is going to, and as far as technique, is going to really need to be on point given his size. And again, given what's going to be asked of him, because one of the huge advantages of James Cook is this chess piece where it's like, are they going to run? Are they going to pass? Where's he going to line up? Yada, yada. But if you see him in the backfield, you don't have to honor that run threat or don't have to honor the pass piece because you attack and you blitz and you make him have to stay in and be accounted for in pass protection. That's a really good opportunity for the defense to then dictate and take that back for the defense versus the Bills. So yeah, tremendous question and tremendous points. And one more question that I had for both you guys, Erik, we'll start with you again. The receiving piece is something that we all love with Cook, and it's, his top attribute and the thing that's sexiest when it comes to his role in the Bills offense. But what is another attribute of his that excites you when you watch the film and you take a look at his game?
Well, I mean, I kind of talked about at the top, his ability to get a few more yards than Motor Singletary. He is a little quicker. I like his lateral agility, his ability to make that one cut, get north and south. When his vision and, as you said, that pacing and pressing the line of scrimmage all aligns correctly is something that he's going to need to be coached up on from Kelly Skipper. But I do like, I know he doesn't run inside a lot, but when he does, like, he can really do some damage, especially if we talk about those 2 high looks, when 2 safeties are deep. Like, he can crease a defense when there's a light box. And it's something that the Bills offense has struggled over, the last few years. They get a lot of attempts versus light boxes, but they could be making such a bigger impact when they see those light boxes.
Very, very important. I share that sentiment. That's my attribute, but I'm a man of my word. Kendall, you are up next. What is the attribute about James Cook that excites you the most aside from his receiving ability?
It's similar. It's in a similar kind of vein. It's the speed and the potential to be an outside run threat, the potential to threaten defenses horizontally, and what he can do to stretch a defense horizontally. Erik, I know you have some concerns about what he can do as an outside zone runner. And obviously, we've seen the Bills the past 2 years trying to utilize outside zone running schemes,
Yeah.
but they don't have backs that can do it. They just don't have guys that can function in that kind of scheme. And while Cook has the speed, the requisite speed to do something like that, Erik, why do you think he doesn't exactly have all the other traits that would be a day one contributor in that scheme?
Well, outside zone, people think it's an outside perimeter run. It's not. An outside zone run is actually supposed to hit up inside. It's
Right.
supposed to stretch the defense horizontally, get them out of their gaps, test their discipline, all of those guys in that front seven, front eight, however many guys in the box, and then crease them up inside. It's actually not an outside run at all. And prior to the snap, the first read is technically the outside defender on the line of scrimmage. So if there's a wide 9 out there, immediately an outside run is shut down. So there are times with Cook where obviously I just said it, like he's not the best inside runner. So if they're running outside zone and his vision and his pacing is off towards that landmark, of the tight end, and then, that's off and he's got to cut it up inside. He's not the most physical runner. His vision, again, is cloudy and his spatial awareness, hurts a little bit when you run up inside and things are a lot faster and guys are a lot bigger. That's where I think that he gets into some trouble, and which inside zone, totally different story, right, guys? You're getting up inside. Yeah. It's a quicker read. But outside zone, it's a whole different ball game. And I do worry. Obviously, Cromer did a lot of that with the Rams, but he's also done all different types of schemes. So I do think they'll tailor it maybe even to each back, when it comes to stuff like that. So I do think just some of those negative traits hurt him on those outside zone runs, specifically because they usually have to cut back up inside.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anything else to add on that, Kendall?
No, not really. I'm just excited about the potential that, maybe he could get better in that regard, because with a guy with his kind of speed and short area quickness, it does kind of force a defense to overplay that outside bit of the outsides. And then it opens that cutback lane to get more north and south. So I'm intrigued by the potential of it, because obviously we just haven't had the horses to do it.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Then my big attribute that I'm excited for with him is the short area burst and his effectiveness against light boxes in whatever form or fashion, whatever run it comes with, whether it's gap and those quick hitters or it's more an inside zone, duo, any of that kind of stuff. And some stats I wanted to bring out. So, Erik, you alluded to some of them. Last year in the regular season, the Bills had the 8th most attempts by running backs versus light boxes. So 8th most. They were 22nd in yards per attempt. They were 26th in yards after contact per attempt, and they were 20th in EPA per attempt. And then just for those who are really into, no disrespect to Mr. Ryan or Rick Bates, or who are subscribed to that theory of, well, when Bates came, everything changed. It really didn't too much. So Bates came in week 16. So from week 16 through the divisional round of the playoffs, runs by running backs against light boxes, the Bills were 8th again, 21st in yards per attempt, 19th in yards after contact per attempt, 16th in EPA per attempt. So they got a little better, but I think a quicker, more decisive running back like a James Cook, who has that short area burst, who has that explosion, who has that ankle flexion that allows him to get skinny and have that maneuverability, all those things combined, having that threat to attack these light boxes that the Bills are going to continue to see because of the threat of Josh Allen and this passing game is something that I think is a real nice boon to this offense. The receiving ability is number one, but for me, that ability to attack light boxes quickly and churn out yards and put that fear in defenses, given his skill set and his traits and what we anticipate the Bills offense seeing, is something that really, really intrigues me. And something else that intrigues me is the set of data that, Erik, you brought into our group DM today that you put up on the screen. So this is really cool. So this is, actually, I don't even want to steal your thunder. Erik, you dive right into it. Why did you pull it? What is it? What's the significance? All that kind of stuff. Yeah, this was a great idea from you. I don't even want to introduce it because I'm like, this is my idea.
No, so you guys are looking at the receiving stats for running backs against the defenses that the Bills are going to play this year. So this is 2021 stats by running backs in the receiving game versus the defenses the Bills are going to see this coming season. So just a frame of reference for, a guy like James Cook and what he could do for the Bills offense. As you can see, some of the DVOAs in the far left column versus running backs, you can see, especially towards the top, the Jets, the Ravens, Steelers, Lions, Patriots, Chiefs, and even the Rams have mixed reviews as far as the receiving game of the running back. So it's an area the Bills can attack. You can see the running back yards per attempt, 7.3 for the Jets, 7.2 for the Ravens, the Patriots, 6.7, Chiefs, 6.6, 6.1. That's considerable yardage. That type of dump down to James Cook, and he can get 7 or more yards. That is, extending drives, extending plays, extending games, and getting points on the board. You can see the rankings for the running backs yards per attempt. I have it sorted in that way. So I think a guy like Cook, when we talk receiving, and as I said, we're going to break down 3 or 4 plays in the receiving game for him. When you look at some of these defenses, again, some of these teams maybe drafted linebackers and safeties to kind of combat these things and improve in these areas. But you got to look at it from the perspective, like not many of these teams have different schemes. And a lot of times schemes are really what dictate, leaving a running back open or rushing a linebacker rather than covering that running back, little things like that. So, again, it's when you look at Chiefs, Rams, Bengals, like some of those AFC teams, like they're allowing a high completion percentage to running backs. And EPA per attempt as well in those areas it's a way for the Bills to attack. And that's why we talked about the rebrand and adding that new dimension, getting James Cook. And that's what is so exciting, I think, overall, when it comes to this player. He's going to make an impact in year 1 when it comes to the receiving game.
I like the DVOA versus the running backs as well. Like I love DVOA as that efficiency like metric that removes as many variables as possible. And seeing again where the Chiefs are, where the Bengals are, where the Pats are, where the Ravens are, like seeing that potential meat that's available to be taken off the bone with the addition of a James Cook. And again, this is Erik, this is something that you've mentioned a whole bunch in, people see receiving stats for running backs. And I think people think like, oh, cool, because they're like split out wide or split in the slot, which Cook can do. But a lot of it comes from just like little checkdowns and routes that come like that are dump offs like underneath 5 yards. And it's like, well, here's some space or a no cover zone. Let me dump this down to my running back and see what he can do. Cook is that type of guy that can take advantage of that space because of his skill set, because of his traits. And it's a really nice pairing given what we're going to see from defenses. And it's something that we saw. That's super. Erik, I read what you just said, and that's literally where my brain was going. We saw Devin Singletary take advantage of those checkdowns late in the year and easy yardage. Like linebackers were just flying out, and you had like 7-8 yards of untouched
extension
space.
of the run game, right?
Exactly. It's easy, and that's such cheap yardage for a QB to drop back and be like, oh, okay, cool, check it down and let the ball do the work in the hands of my running back. And no disrespect to Devin Singletary, but getting the ball in someone like James Cook's hands, who is better in space, who's got that spurst. I combined speed and burst and made spurst. That is not a word, but having that speed and that burst and that elusivity in the open field, it's really something that could threaten defenses underneath and make things, again, continue to make it easy for Josh Allen in this world.
Ooh. Yeah, I love the element that he's going to add to this team. I think you guys tied it in perfectly with what Singletary was doing late in the season, because we saw so many teams go too high, really respect the high to low type of defense and make sure that you don't get beat deep, because Josh Allen's got this cannon for an arm and you don't want to get beat over the top and all that stuff, and keep everything in front of you. And Josh Allen's easy option is check it down to Singletary. Now, you check it down to Cook and maybe you can churn out 4 or 5 more yards per pass attempt. So that's really the intriguing part of this. The yards that were perhaps left on the table last year that we never even realized.
Yeah. And especially when you play teams like the Patriots, who have like bigger or like slower types of linebackers where they have to drop back faster, even with the Chiefs now, who have Nick Bolton, and then everybody's loving the pick of Leo Chenal. Well, he's got some questions in coverage, and those are dudes that if they need to cover vertically and they need to drop, they got to drop fast, which means they're going to bail quick. And if you just slip James Cook right out of the backfield by design or by progression and read, that's easy yardage every time with his ability to turn, get upfield, and take advantage of that open space, almost similar to how he would take advantage of a light box in the running game. And Erik, I know you have one last stat for us before we dive into the film and take a look at some James Cook.
Yeah, and it's, goes back to that receiving chart and what the Bills did last year. So the Bills targeted their running backs 16% of the time in the passing game last year. That was ranked 27th overall. And they averaged 5.3 yards per attempt. That was ranked 21st. So we talked about it in the comment section, like protecting Allen. This is one way to protect Allen, not just as a running back, handing him the ball, but those short passes, those swing routes, those little dump downs are extensions of the run game. And when you have a guy with Cook's speed and receiving ability, hopefully that can extend plays, extend drives, and obviously put points on the board. And it just matches up so well with what the Bills are going to see defensively this coming year. And so we're going to get into the film now. And I want to start with, a few of the run plays here. And this was obviously a big one against Alabama here. But I want you to look at the personnel. You got 2 tight ends in line, 12 personnel, and you got the 2 safeties deep. So, I mean, right off the bat, like this is what we're expecting from the Bills this year and part of that rebrand. And I want you to watch how Cook presses the line of scrimmage with 2 pullers in front of him. Again, more of a gap scheme, not necessarily a zone scheme. And then the vision and speed to get up the sideline after the cutback. This is something, again, if the Bills can run 12 personnel, still get those 2 high looks, because you have Josh Allen, you have, Gabriel Davis and Diggs on the outside. Like, if they can still get those 2 high looks versus 12 personnel, this is exactly what they want to go for with a running back like Cook.
And it's comparable to what the Bills do on offense. 72% of the time last year, they were in shotgun. We know that's a world they like to live in. This is a personnel grouping we could realistically see from the Bills in 2022 with the addition of O.J. Howard. And it's what we're going to see from defenses living in this 2-high world, light boxes. And we see this run again. It's Cook taking advantage of the space that he's given, what's opened up, and yep, there you go. You marked them all. So, just for in case anybody doesn't know, so a light box is 6 defenders or less, and the box is defined as roughly 3 to 5 yards deep. So come in towards like the defense in this aspect, 3 to 5 yards of depth, and then from within the offensive line there. Here you can extend it with you have the tight ends on each side. So we're looking. So we're looking. Yep. So because of the tight ends there, the alignment from Bama, we're looking at 4 down defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 4 plus 2 is 6-man box. And this is, Erik, you mentioned it like being kind of reliant on his line. The line blocks it up really well. And then boom, you highlighted it. This is that decisiveness. He just puts his foot in the ground and you just see the talent come through. You see the burst and you see the safety, right? He over pursues it slightly, not even too much, but it takes him too many gather steps to slow down. And by that time, Cook's already made his cut, runs through the arm tackle. You see him accelerate and extend the run and get away from another defender. But not to be a Debbie Downer, Erik, like you used earlier, this is another example of what we talk about. He's got that burst and he's got that speed, but he does get run down from behind. So you don't see him take it to the house all the way. I remember watching this game and he took off and I was like, oh, touchdown. And then he gets caught from behind. I think you see this with somewhat regularity in the NFL. But again, from the positive aspect, nice vision, nice decisiveness, get north and south quickly. Don't worry about going east and west. Put your foot in the ground, a la, not to, compare him too much to his brother, who people are going to do a ton, but comparing him to Dalvin Cook, who puts that foot in the ground, gets upfield real quickly. You see it here from James, takes advantage of what the line does. Erik, what else you got on this one?
Yeah, and it goes back to what Kendall asked about, with his vision and, the gap runs, why I selected a couple of these gap runs. By pulling offensive linemen, especially multiple offensive linemen, you're getting that horizontal displacement by these linebackers. You're able to basically force them to over pursue to maintain their gap integrity. And that gives, Cook that spatial awareness inside. It gives him a little upper hand. Again, you got that safety from depth. So this is why I like him in gap runs, but it's not really talked about all that often.
No, it's definitely not talked about. In his career, he had 70% zone runs and only 30% gap runs. So you kind of assume, oh, he's a better zone runner. But really, when he's in zone, we talked about it earlier, he doesn't show a lot of creativity. And when you're exclusively a zone runner, the way to show yourself and showcase yourself best is to be creative in those zone runs, because that's just the nature of those runs. You have to be creative with what gap you're going to. Sure, you have a landmark. Sure, you have an area to look towards, but you have to be creative with where you're setting up your cutback, because it's not as obvious and cut and dry as a gap run like this is. And yeah, you highlighted the over pursuit from Christian Harris on this play, and he cuts it back so nicely. But I really like how you broke down this gap play, because before we went into this, I was in the line of thinking that I think he's good in gap runs because a lot of his breakaway runs actually came in gap runs. But I think he's so decisive that sometimes it hurts him in gap runs and he doesn't let these runs develop. You go back to the beginning of this play, and I think it actually helped him a lot that he had a little counter step to the right side of your screen, and it allows those pullers to get out in front of him before he gets over decisive and overruns the play. So I think
times up perfectly.
It times it up perfectly for him to make that cutback and have time to see Christian Harris over pursue instead of him already being into the butt of his guard before he has a time to cut back on this play. So I really like this play in gap, and it does certainly show how he has potential to break away in gap runs and perhaps that scheme elevating his traits.
Yeah, here's another one, right, guys? This is another gap type run. And this isn't an explosive play, but it kind of plays in line with what we were talking about earlier. He's not really an inside runner, but I think that if they have certain concepts called for him, he can maneuver inside and use that, as Kendall kind of just talked about, like force him to be patient. There's that, that counter step, that jab step again. But I want you to watch 97 off the bat here. This guy is actually executing a gap exchange, and he's really blowing up this entire play. But watch the patience by Cook here as those pullers come, and that guy's really blowing up the play. Look, there is really nowhere to go right here. It's a small gap right here, and if he's able to get through it, you have a pretty positive play right here out in front. So watch him again. Be patient. Slip that block, that tackle right there, that arm tackle, and then boom, he finds daylight this way. And again, it's not a huge play, but I just love how he can slash up inside when he has pullers, and it can get him into that third level and sometimes beyond.
Yeah, this is a nice one from, again, like you said, his ability to succeed when you see the move from 97 right off the bat where he wins like this rep really well. And it's like, what do you do if you're the running back? But this is where Cook flashes some of that ability to make you right when you're actually wrong. And he gets skinny, gets through, sheds the arm tackle. This is my favorite part of this run right here, the ankle flexion.
Yep.
Oh, like I feel like for some people that doesn't get them going. For me, it does. Edge rushers and running backs, when you see that ankle flexion or even route running for receivers, that's the one too. He plants on that left. He's on the balls of his feet, and half of his foot is in the turf. His heel is up. You see that ankle flexion, and then what do you see out of it? You still see that explosion out of it, right? He doesn't need that much of a base to continue to generate that push forward, to be able to generate that acceleration, to be able to generate that burst. That's a very exciting thing. And when you put it together with some of that pacing and some of that different nuance aspect, I also like how, again, this is another one of those like false step type of counter steps from him, like it was in the previous clip. These are some of the things, Erik, that it's not vision, but some of the things that they can coach him with to allow the runs to time up better for him. So he's not too fast. So he's not too slow. So that way he can use that decisiveness and that quick hitting ability to his advantage, instead of it being okay, you were there too early, or you ran into the butt of your guard or your puller or whatever have you. And that's a really nice nuanced piece as well. But for me, I know we're all going to highlight different things. The ankle flexion gets me every single time. And then his ability to get forward and get some yards after contact too.
Yeah, I really love the way that he was able to get skinny on this. And obviously, I mean, being the slighter frame that he has, it's obviously easier for him than maybe some other backs in their builds. But the way he stays decisive and he sees, funneling through the backs of his offensive linemen, and he sees this is the only option I have. And he stays decisive, he stays skinny, and he uses his momentum to fight through the arms of number 97. And then, that ankle flexion. But the way he finishes this play is honestly quite encouraging, because I think a lot of people, you see his size, you see his stature, you see his speed, you assume he's not much of a power back, and he isn't. Like, I'll be honest, he isn't. But the way that he finishes this play is encouraging, and it shows that he isn't someone who's afraid of contact. And I remember talking with you, Ant, offline about how there were moments when I saw him get to the second level and it almost seemed like he was afraid of contact, and he was running away from linebackers and getting east and west when he should be staying north and south. So it's encouraging to see him on a play like this, he's faced here with the safety number one. And yeah, sure, he's trying to find open grass, but once he can't find it, he understands he's got to take what he can get, lower the shoulder a little bit, and churn out an extra 2 to 3 yards after contact.
Yeah, very much so. Real quick, I wanted to highlight super chat from John, who is one of our biggest supporters in a variety of forms of fashions. And he pulls out here, he says, on that first video, go back and watch the umpire. Great footwork to stay out of the way. He mentioned it in the comment, and he also pulled it in the super chat. Very true. Look at him get out of the way and be like, oh, okay, I see where this run is going. Nice
smooth
pull.
too. It's just like, hey, look at it. He just smoothly slides.
Real smooth. That was a real nice slide. Like he's on stage and just a quick little electric slide type step there. Good pull from John. I like the film analysis there from John.
Attaboy, John.
Yeah, attaboy, John. Well done. And now I don't even want to. That's so cool to see someone who appreciates what we do and see them pull out their own thing and acknowledge it. Like that's awesome. Well done, John. Who he's one of our favorites too, especially being a Bills guy who's down in Miami behind enemy lines. So major shout out to John as we continue on this film room.
Yeah, and this is obviously the Georgia-Michigan game. 3rd down and 3. Remember that 3rd down and 3, and you're going to see Cook at the top of the screen. So they have quads. They have 4 eligibles to the top of the screen and a solo receiver to the bottom. And I love this play because of the receiver type abilities, right? You heard Bean talk about it. You hear most analysts talk about it with Cook. He's got the ability to read leverage, to change the speed of his route, the pace of his route. And you see that here versus a linebacker. Obviously, a lot of times what offenses do is they align these quads, these 4 eligibles to one side of the field to purposely get man coverage. And that's what Georgia got. Linebacker on Cook here. But watch the release and how, again, he changes the speed of his route. It's a little stutter right there, like he's going to break down and, run a out, run a stop, run a curl. But then he just accelerates up the sideline, stacks that linebacker, and then the natural soft hands to catch it along the boundary by Cook. I mean, this is stuff that receivers do on a daily basis, and you're seeing it from the running back position, which is why we talk about him as being a mismatch, especially against these linebackers.
This is that standard. I think if we had to go to a type of play to show to just like the average Bills fan, if someone was like, hey, why should I be excited about this guy? It would be a play like this. That level of nuance, that level of impact from a running back in this area of the game, you don't see it very often. Even at the NFL level, there's not a lot of running backs who will line up out wide and run a sluggo or a stutter go and just run it with good footwork and good pacing. And then even the old over the shoulder catch, awesome freeze frame catch there.
Ridiculous.
Look how natural of a catch that is, right? It's so smooth, right in stride. You don't see him stumbling over himself. You don't see him double catch with his hands. You just see him look it right in, almost like a center fielder making the over the shoulder catch. It's natural. He's fluid. He's very comfortable in this world. And again, this is that chess piece type thing. You are lining someone up out wide who, if it's man coverage, it's a mismatch all day. Because what linebacker is going to stick with a route running back with that type of speed and burst like James Cook? Or if you're playing zone, cool. Everybody has to spread out. You get to change the math a little bit. You get to see what's coming from a coverage perspective. You make the read easier for the quarterback. At the end of the day, it's a win post snap or pre snap for Josh Allen and the defense. And again, it all starts with that skill set, the pacing, the nuance, the understanding of leverage, all tied into his physical ability. I really love how he sells it too. He gets that defender to break down, and you can see him see the defender break down. And once he knows his feet are stopped, he turns on the jets and he gets upfield.
Yeah, I really agree with that. How he sold this route, I think, is so well. Yeah, how he sees what the DB is doing, but also understanding what he's put on tape all year. The amount of times that he's flexed out into this wide position here and he's just asked to do maybe a quick slant, quick dig, quick stop, curl, whatever it is. He sells that with this stutter at this point in the route, and he understands what he has put on tape. He sees what he's doing to number 25, and the second that guy breaks down, turns on the burners. You see that short area quickness come in, and then he stacks his guy and makes a play. It's the way he tracks the football as a receiver. It's really crazy to see a running back track the football like this on deep passes. And this isn't the only time. And you said it earlier, in his career, 74 targets, 67 receptions. That's over 90% reception rate. He's only had one drop in his entire career on 74 targets, one drop. And you can see it on a play like this. He is a bona fide receiving running back who has potential to become more in between the tackles, but it is just that at this moment. It is potential. So it'll be awesome to see him become more of a well-rounded weapon, not just some chess piece that you can move around in the receiving game.
Yeah, and we talked about that quad set. We talked about the mismatch. Well, here you're going to see him in the backfield, and again, they motion him out to the top of the screen, and here comes Christian Harris. Poor Christian Harris on this play.
Oh, I feel so bad for him.
So he's on him again. He's in off coverage, eyes on the quarterback, and again, this is man on man. And this route is just ridiculous how he attacks, because you can see initially, look at the numbers, look at the alignment by Harris. Watch how Cook kind of attacks inside and then gets into the blind spot of Harris. So he sets up that route. He sets up that route stem. So attacks that inside shoulder and then accelerates outside. Now Harris is looking at the quarterback. Watch how his weight is back as he's looking to the quarterback. He loses all of the leverage and cushion that he had. And now Cook is at full speed and in that blind spot. And there's just no way Harris can recover. And you see Cook make a house call on this play. Again, that type of receiving ability and ability to set up a linebacker, like defenses are going to have to decide, is your personnel good enough to cover James Cook man on man? And more times than not, with the receiving ability, the speed, and again, that football IQ, everything about this guy when it comes to receiving, you got a tough decision on your hands if you're a defensive coordinator.
That's such a beautiful point. You're making defenses have to decide and have to declare, how are you going to handle this player? How are you going to handle these personnel groupings, these alignments? And I love this point. You're taking, so in this aspect, you're Alabama and you put Christian Harris out there on an island in a position that he's not necessarily comfortable with and doesn't see a lot. And Erik, like you mentioned there, he tries to, I feel so bad. Like he tries to go into a bail technique, and when you go into that technique, if you lose sight of your man, if you get lost in your peripherals, you're beat. And Cook does such a good job to set him up, catches him peeking, creates that space between the defender and the boundary, and then knows, okay, what's the adage? If I'm even, I'm leaving. And he just beats him right up there. And Harris, actually, to his credit, he comes close almost to recovering and making a play. So shout out to him. This ball's a little underthrown, but then it gets into Cook's hands and nothing but a touchdown here and a house call. This time Alabama here in single coverage. And that's the piece too, right? Our defense is going to see things like this and be like, well, we can't get caught in single high coverage. If he motions out, do we have to continue to stay in too high? Like maybe they had a really great call for the formation they thought the Bills were in and they wanted to stay in single high. Either way, it is, again, you are continuing to dictate to the defense because of the player that you have and the alignment in which you use him, which is, again, a tremendous thing. That's what football, either way, offensively, defensively, you were trying to dictate. You were trying to be the controller. You were trying to force the hand of your opponent. Cook, because of his receiving ability, automatically right out of the gate, because of that receiving ability floor that he offers, he allows the Bills offense to start to dictate to defenses because of plays like that. And it's a piece the Bills haven't had from that backfield.
Yeah, it's really exciting seeing him in back-to-back plays here, being used as a wide receiver here, like truly set up out wide and showing how he can stack defenders vertically. Obviously, you see it back-to-back against linebackers, but we've seen it before, at least I have on tape, where it's not just linebackers. Sometimes they'll flex out like a nickel guy, someone who's truly a secondary player to guard him, and he is a mismatch threat on all guys. And the other thing is too, do you want to put your number one corner on the running back? Because then you're opening up the wide receiver. And that's like you said, dictating the defense. That's what makes it so difficult for the defense to pick and choose their battles. Like, what is the lesser of two evils here? But I do really like the way, Erik, you said it earlier, his football intelligence when it comes to running routes and understanding how to set up defenders and how to run those routes to make it or optimize your separation and stuff. He just understands that from such a basic level already, which is so impressive for someone that is a running back first.
Yeah, and so the next play is a 3rd and 1 situation. Again, back to that Michigan game. So I love, as I note there, his ability to get open. And everyone's like, well, obviously, like when he has a mismatch, like he's going to get open. But it's not one of those things that just comes easily for a running back. Like you see him at the bottom of the screen. They're an empty set, but they bring him into the backfield. It's man coverage, same guy that was on him earlier for the touchdown. But watch what that guy does. So it's obviously man coverage, but watch how he comes up to the line of scrimmage. And this really is an advantage for a guy like that, for that linebacker, because he knows if Cook releases, he can choke that route stem. He can contain him, keep him inside. He doesn't want him getting up those numbers. But Cook's processing, his mental processing ability to adjust on the fly is just phenomenal on this play. So watch how he gets into this vertical route from the backfield. Again, you have that linebacker on the line of scrimmage, and really he wants to contain this guy. So you see Cook releasing outside. So what this guy wants to do is maintain outside leverage and close that down, disrupt the timing of this play, and really not allow Cook to get outside up the numbers on that vertical route. Watch what Cook does. He immediately changes his route. He almost takes an approach like is what Urban Meyer calls the best release for wide receivers. When they're outside, hey, typically you're supposed to release outside here, but if you get an easy release inside, take it inside, then stem it back outside, get back onto your original route stem. He's doing it from the running back position behind the line of scrimmage. So he goes inside, totally gets that guy flat-footed, blows by him, but then watch, again, now he's going to work back outside the numbers and work up the field here, and he's just wide open. And this was a big play, and it's something that Bean talked about. In these big games, Cook was making big plays on the ground and through the air, and this was just another one of those football IQ, mental processing, understanding leverage type plays that none of the Bills running backs have.
No, and Erik, you said it. He showed up huge in the college football playoff against Michigan and then against Bama in the national championship game. And you hit it for me. His read on the fly in understanding the leverage of the man that is coming to cover him. And again, in that quick football intelligence move to be able to translate the mental to the physical, read and react with what's going on in front of him and be like, oh, okay, cool. He knows what's going to happen. He knows that defender's trying to choke that space and take away that route and take away that option for him, for his quarterback, and allow that rush to get there. And he just plants quick, gets clean, a nice release. Again, it's all of that.
Look at the hand. Look at the hand. Watch his left hand. Hand.
Yes.
Look at that. Look at that.
We love that. Cromer would watch this and appreciate this one. But that's a good point, right? Like, we've talked about it so much when it comes to receivers, when evaluating and scouting for the draft. We talk about the release package, and we talk about the ability to stay clean at the line of scrimmage or at various parts in the stem with hand usage. That's receiver level hand usage from James Cook. And again, for people who want to see it and be like, oh, well, like, I'm sure tons of running backs can do that. They can't. That isn't a thing that running backs do so effortlessly, so smooth, so fluid. And look at the catch point. Look at the hands catch.
Yep.
Boom. You nailed it with that freeze frame. Eye on the ball, just looks it right into his hands. A nice hands catch. He's so natural with that receiving ability. And Kendall, you mentioned the 74 targets, the 67 catches. A lot of those are because maybe they're around the line of scrimmage and what's his average depth of target and so on and so forth and all that. But you understand it when you see him downfield functioning as a receiver, how good of a receiver he is. It's just so natural with his hands and his eyes and his head placement, everything, just the concentration, the focus. And this play is beautiful from start to finish. The release package, the football intelligence, the IQ, and then even the athleticism. He has to stop and reach back with his hands and then quickly transitions, gets back upfield, doesn't get caught.
3rd and 1 too, man. Like big plays, right? In big moments. A bunch of these explosive plays are 3rd and 1, 3rd and 3. Oh, look at everyone else in these routes. They're running right to the first down marker. He is the vertical element. He's the only one going deep. They got the matchup. He got the release, Kendall, and obviously made them pay.
Yeah, I mean, not much to add on an analysis standpoint, but holistically speaking, no, I mean, you guys did a great job. It's a good thing when you guys do that. No, but I mean, holistically speaking, like, this is the element that we've been missing. This is an element to the offense that the Bills have been missing, and we haven't really been able to see what it is that we're missing. And I think We talked about it earlier in this episode. There are multiple ways to alleviate pressure from Josh Allen and all of the ways that this offense has to flow through Josh Allen. This is an easy way. Adding James Cook is an easy way to alleviate some of that pressure, albeit it could be some checkdowns, it could be some wheel routes like this, but easy ways to just get the ball in the hands of a playmaker and let them make plays. I talked about it on the Madden cast. You just check it down to this guy and he can make a play instead of, oh, Josh Allen sees, oh, it's 3rd and 7. I don't think I should check it down to Singletary here. I think I have a better chance, using my legs and picking up the 7 yards on my own. This is another way, unconventionally or conventionally, however you want to put it. It's another way to take pressure off of Josh Allen in this offense.
Yeah, it's exciting. And this is the last play here, guys. It's 3-by-1 set, and you have Cook in the backfield. And you can see just from looking at some of the body posture of the corners up top, even the alignment of this guy right here, that it looks like man coverage. Again, teams want to play man coverage because they think that the Bills lost some weapons over the last couple of years. Then they're going to be in trouble when you have Cook on the field here. This is just a beautiful Texas route. And again, that ability to get open. So initially he's releasing outside. He has to get outside of his tackle, the right tackle here. So he works around that initially, but now he's in a position of dominance. He has that defender. And, he set him up for a two-way go. We always talk about it for slot receivers, right? And being talked about, he's got a lot of slot receiver abilities. Setting up a two-way go is one of those first things that a slot receiver has to be good at, right? So he's head up with this defender. And now, you look to the middle of the field, there's a lot of green there, and that's where he goes. But he really could have taken it either way, especially with these guys kind of clearing out. But the middle of the field's wide open. Texas route, plants inside, and you see right as the ball's coming in, that defender does a good job of closing that cushion. But watch Cook kind of jump upfield just a little bit. And that's important post-catch, because as he catches it right there, now he's got that separation beyond that guy. He doesn't even have to break a tackle. He's not going to get tripped up by him. So that little, post-catch jump right there is just beautiful, puts him in the open field, and now you see that speed, right? You have a huge alley right here. Can he hit it? Can he get in for 6 points? He does. And, again, he's a mismatch. If you get him the ball in the middle of the field on something as simple as that, like, that's a new dynamic we've been talking about. And, it's something that defenses are going to have to be aware of now on Sundays.
And it's an area of the field that the Bills can exploit and attack because of the presence of Stephon Diggs. We've seen it so much. Diggs gets bracketed. Cole Beasley would get bracketed as well by certain teams. If you're bracketing Stephon Diggs, that's one less defender deep or in the box who's committed to coverage overall. You are going to get these type of one-on-one opportunities underneath, whether it's man, whether it's pattern match zone, or even spot drop zone. You're going to get that opportunity if you're James Cook. And you highlight the safety there, Erik, like they're bailing out of the field. He's trying to get over the top. This middle just opens up for Cook. And this is something that I love for Alvin Kamara's game. And I know some people make that comp. John had a bunch of really good comps in the chat. You're talking about Warwick Dunn, Percy Harvin. Someone else said Charlie Garner. I love the Charlie Garner comp.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I know it's a really good one. Kendall, scroll back and see if you can find who said Charlie Garner. We'll make sure we give him his credit. But this angle route or this choice route is such a weapon. Boom, it was Ronald, who's fantastic. Well done, Kendall. Thank you very much. And well done, Ronald. That's such a weapon to have out of the backfield because it's pure mismatch. It's taking advantage of what the defense has been forced into because of the look that they're in and the other areas that they're forced to defend and forced to respect. And Erik, I love that you highlighted his the post-catch ability there. We talk about it with receivers. And Kendall, you and I talked about it a bunch with Drake London. The ability to separate. People just think it's all because you're running by guys. There's multiple ways in which you can separate, and there's multiple points in the route at the route and in the stem where you can separate. He separates here at the catch point. And that's that's a tremendous thing. That's a nice, again, what do we see? A nice athletic catch, a nice hands catch, and the ability to then transition athletically and get upfield, and he makes a house call. Like we saw in the very first clip that we played, right, against Bama. The defenders have the angle, they catch him and they run him down, right? Here, there's no mistake. And there's some defenders that could have had angle, but that split safety towards the bottom of the screen who played over the top, he takes too shallow of an angle and Cook makes him pay. And that, again, this is all an aspect of football the Bills have not traditionally had with Josh Allen, a running back with the understanding of coverage and leverage to get to green grass and get to open space. A running back with that type of receiving ability and functional intelligence and athleticism to separate at the catch point and then tie it all together with physical ability and speed and burst to outrun defenders and change angles at times. This is a very exciting thing because, again, these are the type of looks the Bills are going to see to be able to have that middle of the field open. Cook will take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's awesome to see him do it on such a basic level running back route. Like these Texas routes, they're easy in nature, but to actually execute, you have to be sound. You have to be good, and you have to have the athletic ability to set up that linebacker. And like you said, Erik, create that two-way go. And he does it so many times. There were so many times on tape where the quarterback just didn't see him and he was wide open for plays like
that's what
this that were
sucked.
just
There was a lot of production
on
left on the
tape.
field. Yeah.
So much. He got open on these little choice routes over the middle, or, you know, if he wanted to break it outside, whatever, so many times. And it was just left on tape. And it's really sad to see because you see it on this play and you're like, wow, how many touchdowns were left on the field because they wanted to have an average depth of target of 12 on that play or whatever versus just checking it down for the easy completion for 7 and then it turns into 20 more. And I think that ties into what I said on the last play. Like, this is an extension of the run game. This is an extension of how you can alleviate some of that pressure off of Josh Allen, because let's be honest, this isn't an overly difficult throw. Obviously, you got to get it through the trash of the defensive line first, but you got to make an accurate throw, and then it's just up to your guy to go make plays afterwards, and that's something
pitch and
that
catch
Cook can do. Yep.
Yeah, pitch and catch. Oh, boy. Super Bowl. No, I'm just kidding. Knock on wood. But I think, Erik, you did such a great job with these, selecting these clips. And it's so funny because we've watched so much film and we were talking about it to get everyone to peek behind the curtain, like offline. We've seen these clips like so many times in these games and this film and how these players play. But I think this was a good example in a film room of showcasing a player's skill set and his strengths and how a team or the player can play to them. But also we worked in some of those things other than pass protection. You got a glimpse of some of the areas of opportunity that he will potentially have going forward. But I think what's really nice to have with him is his receiving ability already. And great comment here from Jowl. He says he seems very smart and reactive in one-on-one coverage. Why does he seem to have poor vision with reading his own line blocking? I'll answer this first and then we'll go around the horn. I just think a lot of it is a different feeling. Running routes and understanding space and leverage in the receiving game is different than getting the ball in the backfield, having to play off of your offensive line and playing off the defenders that are coming forward at you. And again, with his vision, for me at least, his vision isn't bad at the first level where the offensive line is meeting the defensive line. Where I think his vision struggles the most is at the second level, setting up those linebackers or those safeties that are coming down and playing off of those guys in tight quarters. It's just a different aspect. And also, again, even just in this specific example, one-on-one coverage, it's a lot easier reading the body language of one defender and manipulating them than it is versus reading an entire front and trying to think 2, 3, 4 steps ahead to set up your run.
Yeah, in the receiving game, if he's one-on-one like that against a linebacker, he's obviously got the advantage. And it's almost for him, he's probably like, it's like an and one mixtape. Like he can do all these different types of moves and really get the advantage and leverage. Whereas, when he's behind the line of scrimmage, whether he's on the dot or, in shotgun, like you're basically running against, again, a 7-man front. You got to think like things are a lot tighter. They're more condensed and it's a lot faster. And so it's just different. There's not as much space. And obviously he's more reliant. He's got to rely on his blockers picking up and covering their guys so that he can do what he is paid to do. So I think it's a great question, but in space, he's way better and his vision is much better because he has that space.
Yeah, I can agree with both of it. The point that you guys hit that I was going to say is really just one-on-one. You're just reading that guy. But when you're doing your run fits and run blocking and you're actually reading the entire line, you're reading 5, 6, 7 blocks opposed to just, okay,
Right.
how's this guy leveraging me in this route? What is he reacting when I stutter this way? It's a lot
Mhm.
more basic when it comes to one-on-one versus extrapolating that out versus 5v5 or 6v6 or 7v7.
Well, very good point as well. And yeah, very good question from Jowl. Was again another tremendous supporter of us here at Cover One. As we start to wind down here on this episode of the Cover One Film Room, Erik, we'll start with you. Closing thoughts on Mr. James Cook, anything and everything, whether it's film related, metric related. What are your closing thoughts as we wrap this episode up and start to move forward towards mini camps and training camps and preseason as this season really starts to get going here?
Yeah, it kind of wrap it up with the rebrand, right, guys? Like, the
Mm.
Bills obviously want more of that 12 personnel. We talked about it from a coaching perspective with Cromer and what he did with the
Yeah.
Rams. We talked about it from a personnel's perspective, bringing in OJ Howard and things like that. So it's obvious they want to use that personnel grouping more. And Cook, when you insert him in the backfield or out wide, he's obviously another weapon, right? He's another weapon. And they're going to need that, especially if they're going to use more 2 tight end sets, especially if they want to pass out of those 2 tight end sets. They may need that extra blocker in OJ Howard or Dawson Knox because he is going to be releasing into those routes. So it's just another piece that the Bills are going to add to the offense that they haven't had. We said it a ton of times in this breakdown. We showed you film on why it's going to be an advantage. So again, I wasn't the highest on him when it comes to value and grade, but I understand why and how he can be a great piece for the Bills offense because we just haven't seen it. And he's going to make Josh Allen's job a lot easier, especially on those passing downs.
Oh, very well said. Kendall, same to you. Closing thoughts on Mr. James Cook as we wrap up this episode and start to move forward in the offseason.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off some of what Erik said. I think it's evident that this was an area that the Bills felt like they could get better in. This is an area that the Bills felt like they left yards on the table, specifically having a running back that can do stuff out of the backfield, both as a runner and a receiver, because they took a stab at J.D. McKissic. Then they took a stab at Duke Johnson. And despite still having Duke Johnson signed, they took a stab at James Cook. This was clearly an area that they felt like they could get even more out of their offense than they already got in years past. So I think we should take it for what it is. Obviously, he is what he is as a receiver. Obviously, he can still get better. He isn't done progressing in that regard, but he's a great receiving running back. And I think there's still some potential to grow as a running back between the tackles and hopefully on those outside runs, get some more of that going, stretch the defenses horizontally and open some more stuff up the seams and stuff like that. So I'm just really intrigued with what this can do for the offense in different ways that it can open it up.
That's a very similar thought for me. I think a lot of people, are really hitting on that receiving piece, and rightfully so. He's a better receiver than he is pure runner or running back, but he still can do some really positive things as a runner, and that's the area of opportunity that I'm interested in seeing. Obviously he can progress in the receiving piece as well, but I'm very interested to see what his progression and development looks like as a runner, because right now coming into this 2022 season, he already presents a pretty high floor because of his receiving ability. Right away, the type of weapon that he is in this passing game and in this offense, the fact that it is a new layer and new dynamic to this offense and for Josh Allen that we have not seen, he already presents a pretty high floor. If he can develop further in that high floor area or start to add some other things to his running ability, whether it's pacing, whether it's understanding leverage in the run game, whether it's reads, anything and everything, if they can increase and turn the dial up a little bit on his between the tackle effectiveness and overall ability as a runner, he's somebody who could be really, really interesting long-term. Again, Devin Singletary, this is his last year of his contract. Does he come back? Zach Moss, this is his second last year. Does he come back after 2 more years? Is James Cook the future of this backfield? Is he always going to be a complementary piece? He's got some really, really intriguing upside because of that receiving ability and the traits and the skill set that he possesses. If they can coach him up and polish some of those edges, this is a really nice potential pick for the Bills on day 2. They went a little earlier than they did with Moss and Singletary. Still haven't gone round 1. running back yet, but maybe starting to work it up a little bit more with this round 2 pick of James Cook, right?
There's always next year.
There is always next year. You never
It's
know.
already starting with Robinson too.
I was literally going to say,
Yeah,
and then
right.
when they take Bijan Robinson next year, dude, I would sign up for that. You give me a backfield of
Oh,
Bijan
yeah.
Robinson.
Are you kidding
and James
me?
Cook. Oof, that
You
would
know,
be
I picked
sexy as hell.
32, of course.
Yeah, after we win the Super Bowl, fantastic.
Yes, I like
it. Put up good vibes into the air. Put it all, knock on wood, of course, because I am superstitious. But I think, yeah, and closing thoughts for everyone from us. He's got a really intriguing skill set. This is a fun piece that is added to this offense. But as with everything, expectations, don't set yourself up for potential disappointment and failure and think like, oh my God, I've seen a lot of comps in a variety of ways. People think he's going to be Kamara. People are saying the Deebo Samuel piece. Same thing for even Khalil Shakir. Oh my God, he's going to be just like Deebo because I saw him carry the ball twice out of the backfield.
Cooper Kupp.
Yes. I haven't even seen that one too. Man, like, don't get too high up. Also, don't undervalue. Just put your faith in the tape and what you see. Pump the brakes. Take things as they come. At the end of the day, the Bills got a nice weapon and a nice piece that they previously did not have that skill set before in this offense. At the end of the day, this offseason, as Brandon Beane said, has been all about helping Josh Allen. This move helps Josh Allen, and we'll see what James Cook does throughout this offseason in his career and potentially becoming more of a complete running back and more effective overall. And that will do it for us here in the Cover One Film Room. I want to thank everyone who rode with us live on this episode. The chat was tremendous. The engaging comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, the back and forth between you guys and with us. We appreciate you so much for being here live with us on this Tuesday night. And if you're listening later, watching later, whatever have you on YouTube, any one of the podcasting apps or platforms, thank you very much for your view, your listen, your download. Please rate and review and subscribe to the Cover One Film Room and to Cover One as a whole. Please drop a like on this video. I know it's corny, but it helps us out tremendously. We appreciate every single ounce of support from you guys in any way, shape, or form that you show it. And for Mr. Erik Turner, Mr. Kendall Mursky, and myself, Anthony Prohaska, this has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room. We appreciate you guys. We will see you next week. And as always, go Bills.